You Booked It, episode 54. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world! I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainment professionals 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to have a successful entertainment career. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainment professionals. We're here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community, where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app, where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating, and review. And now, let's do this. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Will Rothhaar. Are you ready for this, Will?
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody.
Alrighty. Will has been acting since he was 4 years old. He has appeared in all of the CSIs, Castle, Grimm, 2018 Benji, which is currently on Netflix, Battle Los Angeles, and as Lee Harvey Oswald in National Geographic Channel's Killing Kennedy, which was nominated for an Emmy. He has an album out on all streaming platforms called That Good Love under the stage name Willie Lamar. He also has a side business as a life coach and body worker / energy healer. Will, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps, if you will. Who you are, where you're from, where you're currently calling home, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, so I'm Will Rothhaar. I was born in New York City. I came from a family of actors. Both my parents are professional actors that are still working and doing their thing. They're also directors and writers. I moved to California when I was six or 7 years old, and we were kind of back and forth between New York and LA for a little while. And yeah, my parents got an agent out here, and she met me and was like, I really want to represent him. And my parents said, okay, if he's going to do this, there's going to be some ground rules. Like he's going to go to public school his whole life. He's going to have an education. He's not allowed to be a series regular till he's almost out of high school or completely out of high school, because they didn't want me to grow up on a set. They wanted me to have a childhood, and they stuck to that. And I mean, my parents are pretty awesome, but that was one of the best things that they've ever done for me, was making sure that I was going out and scraping my knees up and climbing trees, and I got to actually be a kid. And when I moved out here, my parents put me in an elementary school that was a Spanish immersion program. It's a public school, and so I K through fifth, and then all the way through high school. Well, at least in elementary school, every subject all day from 8 to 3 was only taught in Spanish. So that is my second language, even though I'm not Latino at all. And that has actually afforded me a lot of really fun opportunities in the industry to go in and audition and actually get to play some Spanish speaking roles, which has been awesome. And yeah, and then I continued just on the path of grinding and doing the thing that we call acting, and enjoying myself, experiencing all the ups and downs as well, because we all know how crazy it can get. Sometimes you're really hot, and when you're not, you're really not, and it takes some pivoting, but I always say, as long as you're having fun, that's kind of all that matters. And then as I got older, the acting shifted into working on some of my own projects, or co-directing with a couple of friends on some smaller projects, and I found a bit of a calling as well, coaching people. I have a lot of friends, a lot of close people who call me for advice, and my wife at a certain point was like, why aren't you charging for this? So, but I get a lot from being of service to people, and that's one of the things that I find the most fulfilling. So I decided that I wanted to also, along with the acting, go into coaching and body work and energy healing. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now, as well as my other projects. So That's a little bit more about me.
Yeah, I love it. I love your journey. I love your story. I love how your parents consciously made the decision to keep you into a normal setting, quote unquote, I guess, compared to the showbiz world, but always having your foot in the door. I love that. And the Spanish stuff, way cool. But let's move on to
For
this
sure.
next section here. And Will, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everybody?
Ooh, my favorite quote that I tell people when I'm speaking with them or when I'm coaching or just kind of try to live by on my own is be kind, be love, and it's really simple. Just don't be a jerk. It's pretty easy. I always say it takes a lot more muscles to frown than to smile, right? So a lot of time I feel like it takes more effort and energy out of you to be a jerk, and so it's not that hard to be nice. And I think in the world that we're living in, when everything is as crazy it is as it is, and we're adapting to this new form of life, it's going to benefit us all to just be a little kinder to each other. I think the world needs more love right now, so yeah.
Absolutely. I could not agree more, especially, like you said, with everything that is going on in the past 4 or 5 months in this country.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment now to move to this section. And Will, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective,
Yeah.
brutally honest,
Hmm.
personally emotional industries either of us have probably ever experienced. And you know as well as I that in order to create and to have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while yeah, of course, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement doing what we do. There are also our fair share of obstacles and challenges and failures that we are inevitably going to experience, and we're going to have to move forward through if we want to continue doing this for our careers. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
I actually had a thought. This is sort of a twofold question. A lot of people ask me what the hardest thing about being an actor is, and I always say, I think the hardest thing about being an actor is the two plus hours that you have to sit in your car on a Thursday going to read for some producers that are just really tired from the week and probably don't want to necessarily be in a session, but that's their job, and bearing your all and showing your stuff and doing your thing. I have a lot of fun at auditions, but like that, if I'm thinking about like the work of this business, that's kind of like the work. When I get the job and I get to go play, you get to travel, you get to meet a bunch of new people, you make a family, you get to bring to life a character that it may be completely you and it may be a big stretch, but that's the fun for me. That's when I just get to go play. But one of the biggest challenges that I've found in the last like probably 6 7 years was when I got into my mid to late 20s, kind of after 26. Your body changes, your face evolves a little bit, and I'm 33 at the moment, and I look pretty young for my age, which is like it can be a blessing and a curse because I I got to a point where I would no longer be able to play like the high school kids, and I could still play some college, but I wasn't quite old enough looking to play the dad or the lawyer or the detective, quite that branch of age yet. And another challenge that I faced, which is, it's not necessarily a challenge, it's also just sort of like, come on, like, don't pigeonhole me, let me get into some other things. But I've spent a large portion of my career playing the bad guy. I play the bad guy. I play the villain all the time. The anything from the guy who kidnaps children and dogs to the your favorite white supremacist. Like, and
Yeah.
it's and I do. I mean, it's I have a look to me as well. I have tattoos, but I cover them up when I go in to read for things. But yeah, so that's also been another challenge. And but I'm hoping that once this, everything from COVID sort of settles down and we have the chance to get back to work, I might have aged into myself just a little bit more, so I can get out and start kind of playing with the roles that I haven't had a shot at yet. And yeah, and just work from there, see if I have any hitters.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
love that you brought up the age thing, how you kind of age yourself out of different roles, but you're kind of in this gap time. You're not quite old enough, and that's something that is throughout this entire industry, whether it's the film industry or the live theater industry.
yeah,
There are so many people that enter this world and they might not even work for a decade, really. I mean, they get some
100%.
gigs in here and there, but they don't come
Yep.
into the meat of their career until they've aged into themselves. And it's one of those things that you
Yeah.
have to know exists and to not get discouraged that if you really want this and you are passionate about it, that your time will come.
Totally. And it's good to hear you say that too, because I have that because I've been doing it for so long. I have that thing that happens when I don't work for a while. And my wife is not in my industry, but she is my biggest fan and is constantly supportive, even though in the time that we've been together since we got together, I really haven't worked that much as an actor. And it's been yeah, and it's been rough. And but she's really supportive. But I've been doing it for so long that I look at myself and I'm like, God, am I just like one of those kid actors who's now just a washed up 30 something and I'm kind of over the hill career wise, and do I need to consider something else, and do I just let this go? And then something inevitably happens, the universe puts something in front of me or whatever that kind of slaps me in the face and goes, no man, this is why you love to do this. You are an artist, and this is, no matter what the highs and lows are, you're always going to be, you're that's always going to be a huge part of you. So don't allow yourself to just let it go. And then I also, I'll get a tidbit of fact, or somebody will, when I'm talking to a friend about being discouraged or something, they go, well, Morgan Freeman didn't book his really first big thing until he was almost 50, or Susan Sarandon was quite a little older too, and I look at these people who have had massive meaty careers, and a lot
Yeah.
of them didn't really hit until they were a bit older, in their late 30s and 40s, and the other thing too is I have a lot of friends, close people, I because I grew up in the theater, and everybody that I was around, all my peers were much older than I was, and so I grew up around a lot of adults, and I keep a lot of company that are 6, 7, 10, 12, 20 years older than I am. And some of my friends that are, when I was hitting 27 to 29 and I was in that weird age gap thing, I had a lot of friends who we consider each other equals, but they're all 36 to 39, and they were just hitting everything. They were booking jobs left and right. I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on? Like, why and not like why are they getting it and I'm not? Because that's, I support my peers for sure, but I was like, what's the difference? And then my wife would have to be like, yo, they're like 7 to 10 years older than you are. And that made sense and kind of put me at ease about it, because it's true. And the other thing too, I just think that if you, no matter what you do in your life, whether you're an entertainer, an artist, or a construction worker or a doctor, if you have a love and a passion for anything that you do, and you have that perseverance and that hustle, it's just going to keep bouncing back around. I mean, even if the world went completely belly up, more so than it is now, and we were living off of campfires and barbecued hot dogs, you and I we'd still have a job. Entertainers will still have a job, because you can still get up and tell a story. You can still, act and play and pull somebody up and do a monologue, or whatever it is. You can still entertain people. So even if our industry were to just tank and not make it anymore, God forbid that, but if it ever were to happen, we would still have something to do. We'd still be able to bring some joy to the hearts and minds of individuals who need a little bit of release from their own reality.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that, and I that's what I love so much about the arts and the entertainment industry is
Mm,
exactly that, is that we are storytellers and we're able to share
totally.
all of this with everybody. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing in the entertainment industry.
Sure.
Tell us about that.
Well, as I said, both my parents are actors, and I grew up my dad was the artistic director of a small theater in South Central Pennsylvania. and my mom was in all the shows. My dad, by the way, quick plug. My dad is a guy named Michael Rothhaar, and you've seen him on a ton of things, from through the '90s and through now. My mother is Nancy Linehan Charles, and she plays Old Peg on Young Sheldon, and she's got a big recurring role on that. She's also done a bunch of films for Rob Zombie, playing anything from a witch to a psychotic nurse. So look for them as well, because they're both beasts in this industry as well. But yeah, my playpen was set up in the orchestra pit during musical tech rehearsal. And as soon as I got old enough to walk around, I was hanging out with actors on their cigarette breaks out back at the theater while they were, doing changeover or waiting for their entrance. And so it's not like I had one moment where I was like, this is my thing. But my dad, back in the day when we were leaving to come to LA, he wrote a letter to kind of the whole theater company as like a parting, thank you. And he said, Will is already changing costumes 4 times a day and dying upstage. If he doesn't become an actor, I'll eat my equity card. And and it's true. Like
I
I
love
was
that.
always doing that. I was like, Pop, dress me up as this. I want to play this role right now. I want to do this, and I always loved it. I think a moment that my dad would say that it's when he knew that my heart was really in it. I had been doing a David Mamet play at the Geffen Playhouse in Westwood called The Cryptogram when I was 11 years old, turned 12. And if you know anything about David Mamet, he's an incredible writer, but also very complex in so far as where he wants pauses done and where words cut off and these things. And the language can be really intricate. But my dad, he grilled me and grilled me and grilled me with this and worked with me for 6 weeks and got it down. And I'm so appreciative of him for getting me there, as a young boy. And he sat in the house for every single performance, and he was there for me every time. But at the top of Act 2, I have this monologue that is like a page and a half long, and it's this story, whatever. And I'm sitting on the couch by myself, and my mother's off stage in the kitchen. And it's a full house, and the Geffen, I can't remember how many seats they have, but it's a pretty big theater. And I was sitting out there, and I got to this part where I had this line to my mom off stage, and I said it, and immediately I was up. I would just went up. I blanked, and she said the line from off stage, which prompted the next one, and I didn't know it, and I didn't know what show I was in, and I'd never gone up before, and it was the most terrifying experience ever. And I just repeated the last line, and my mom came out and sat next to me, and she was like, "Honey, I told you it was when he was in the war," whatever the line was. And immediately I was back, and it felt like an hour to me, but it
Yeah.
was 10 seconds. It was it. And I got off stage, and I just like went straight to my dressing room. My mother had a quick change, and I come off. I was like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I went back to my dressing room, and I had a while before I had to be on stage, and I burst into tears, and I lost my myself in the dressing room. And my dad came back because my dad was sitting in the house, and when it happened, because he knew my part so well, because we had worked together on it for so long, and he would look and he goes, "Oh my God, he just went up." So he left the house, and he came back, and he didn't say this to me till much later when I was a late teenager, but he goes, he told me that story, and he goes, "Well, when I walked in that dressing room and I saw how you reacted to that," he was like, "Oh wow, yeah, oh, this is his thing. He's really in it. This is, yeah, he's an actor." Like,
Yeah.
because it meant so much to me. So yeah, that was those two little tidbit stories.
Yeah, I love that story. And oh my gosh, blanking on stage, whether that's choreo line,
Yeah.
and when it's
Uh-huh.
live, ugh.
Oh yeah.
I think everyone that's been doing this for any length of time can relate to that awful feeling.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But it's like those moments don't outweigh the love that I have, and that I think we all have for this. I mean,
Absolutely.
the for the heartbreak and the massive high points, it never gets old.
Totally. Well, let's
Yeah.
piggyback on that question and
Mm.
let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
I'm gonna have to say that it was when I booked the role of Lee Harvey Oswald in National Geographic Channel's Killing Kennedy. I was 26 and single, and just like I was in a really rough spot. Like that pilot season, I had like a good amount of auditions. It was great, but nothing, I wasn't hitting. And I was at my dad's house having lunch one day, and that week in particular, like I luckily, thank gratefully, I had like at least one audition a day, maybe two. So I had like 7 or 8 that week, and I had to make a tape for Killing Kennedy, and I forgot that it was due that day. And eating lunch at my dad's house. My manager's assistant calls, and she's like, "Hey, can you get this in today?" And I was like, "Uh oh." I was like, "Yeah, yes, absolutely, I got it." So I told my dad, "I really need your help." We made this tape as best I could. I sent it off and I was like, okay, I'm glad I got that out. I'm probably not going to hear anything from that, but that's all good. But I really liked the project, and so I didn't hear anything for a while, and I was headed up to San Francisco to go to my cousin's wedding. And at the time, like, I was super broke. I like was, my mom was helping me out with like $100 here or there. Like it was a really rough time. And I was in line waiting to board the plane, or in the ticket line going up to San Francisco. And my manager's assistant calls and he's like, "Hey, can you send us the tape for Oswald again? Because casting really, really likes it, but they want to show it to the director. And for some reason, they can't find it." And I was like, "Yeah." And I found it, I pulled it up, sent it through WeTransfer. And then I went to the wedding, had a great time, came back, and my manager was like, Hold tight. They really, really like you for this." And I was like, okay. So it was like another week of waiting
Ugh.
to hear the word. No callback, no nothing. But like, and one day I was just hanging out with my best friend. We just were kind of bumming around. I went to the barber shop. I got my hair cut, and like, he and I picked up some Mexican street corn, and we went back to his house, and I was eating on his porch. The sun was setting. It was a beautiful day. And I get a text from a different agent in the office who's not my point person, who usually makes the call for you to tell you booked it. And he was just like, "Congratulations on Oswald, man, way to go." And
What?
I was like, "Huh?" And he called me and was like, "Oh my God, I think your agent like just sent it out on the email right before she left the office, and then was gonna call you on the way home." He was like, "Please act surprised when she calls you. I just messed that up." And I
Ah.
was like, "Man, they're good news from good news is, good news from anywhere is still great news. So it's all good. Thank you so much." He was like, "Don't tell her." And then she called me. She goes, "He just called you, didn't he?" I was like, "Yeah, but it's all good." I was like, "Don't be mad at him. It's fine." But yeah, and then she's like, "Okay, well, you have 3 weeks to prep for this. The director wants to send you a bunch of material." And there you go. And so I went to Richmond. This was actually kind of the coolest part about this, because once I got that, I was just like, now I get to go play. And I'm also just a history nerd, so I knew that I was going to have 3 weeks in Virginia to just sit down, and I'd go to a bar, I'd get a bite to eat and a beer, and I would sit and grab my iPad and my books, and I would just go down the rabbit hole and learn everything that I could about this guy and about the history of the time and the events. But I did some costume fittings and some hair stuff, and or hair tests and everything. And the AD comes up and she's like, "Hey, the director wants to meet you." And I said, "Yeah, great." And here's his office. So I go in and I sit down, and it's a Nelson McCormick. He's one of the finest people that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And I sat down. He had his feet up on his desk, and he's like, "Hey." And I was like, "Hey." And he goes, "Listen, I don't know if you remember me." And he flashes back to this time. He goes, I was the executive producer on a show called Touch, which was the show that Kiefer Sutherland did just after 24." And he said, I don't know if you remember me, but I came in," and he was referencing an audition that I had, where I came in. And I don't like, I love auditioning, but you know how it is. Sometimes you feel like you hit it, and sometimes you don't. And a lot of the
Totally.
times you don't. But this was one of those times where I was like, "Oh, I'm really, really happy with that." And he basically was like, "I was an executive on that show, and you came in and murdered this audition for me. I mean, you blew me away. I was really gunning for you, and the network didn't want it, and I was really upset because you were my guy." And he goes, "And so when I saw your tape for this, I just straight up said, I don't need to see anyone else. That's my guy." And he's like, "I've been wanting to work with you since then."
Oh,
So
wow.
another piece of advice, and another thing that I just want to say to everybody is, you never know who's sitting in the room. You never know. Like the kid who's running the camera could be the head of Warner Brothers next year. You never know. So when you go in, put your best foot forward. Make your choice in your actions, in your intentions. Know where you're going in the scene. Hustle hard, and I promise you, that was a year and a half prior, almost 2 years prior that I had that audition. And just because I made that tape, he remembered me from that one appointment that I had, and he was like, "I like this kid. This is who I want because he did a good job for me. I want him for my project. I don't need to see anything else." So you just never know. So just always go in with an open heart, with lead with love, and just do your thing, and I promise you it will always work out.
Brilliant. Wonderful advice. Amazing story. Love
Thank you.
that. And on that movie in particular, fantastic work, by the way.
Oh,
Brilliant.
thank you so much. I
Brilliant.
appreciate you watching. That means a lot, man. Thank you.
My pleasure. And let's move on and let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And look, it is a weird time, and
It
we
is
are
a weird
amidst
time.
this global pandemic. How do
Absolutely.
you see this entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I think that is a question we've all been battling. I had lunch with my manager a few weeks ago, social distance, obviously, and we were talking about it, and I've heard that just the sort of way that everything is going to operate now. I think, well, I mean, certainly until we get a vaccine, I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, let's be honest, the way that we exist now is going to be forever different, even if we have a vaccine. Like, I don't think there's really a way that we can really go back to like all the way normal, the way that we used to be.
Yeah.
As sad as that is, but I feel like people are adapting well. So I think that what's going to have to happen is when you book a job, you get flown out to wherever you're going to shoot, and they will quarantine the core cast for 14 days, and then from then on you will only, I probably only be able to live, be in the same house with the people that you've been quarantined with.
Yeah.
And then they'll probably quarantine supporting casts separately, and there will probably be they'll try to keep the crossover. If they're shooting, like, say somebody from group B needs to do a scene with someone from group A, they'll keep that like as minimal as possible, probably social distance, and they'll shoot it a certain way, and I think that's probably, the sets are going to be more skeleton. Probably there's not, one person at a time will be allowed in the makeup and hair chair. They're just going to do everything to keep everything safe. There's going to be a lot of, probably an entire small team that disinfects everything as the day moves on a set, and it's a it's a rough truth to wrap your head around, because if anybody that is listening to this that knows me, anybody that knows me, know that I'm a hugger. Like, I love hugs. That's who I am. I try to spread love in any way that I can. And when I meet people, I always ask, I'm saying, listen, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I do hug people. Is that all right with you? And so the one thing I've been missing during this time is hugs, and one of the things that I love about being on set is that, like, camaraderie, that closeness, and giving hugs to people. And that's not gonna be a thing for a while anyway, which kind of sucks. But yeah, the forward movement, I think that's probably where it's going to start, and it'll have to build from there. In terms of what I'm working on right now, obviously, as we've been talking about, there's a thing being cast, there's not much anyway. And if it is, I mean, I had friends that just before all this happened had 4 projects lined up, and they were flown out to start work and then immediately flown home, and everything was postponed.
Yeah.
So even the people that I know that are working aren't able to work right now, which really really sucks. So I mean, obviously, I'm not really auditioning. I'm writing a couple of short films at the moment, and working with my buddy Mike King, who is an incredible artist. He's going to direct it for me and shoot it. And I'm also developing, and this sort of came out of something random that I did, but I'm starting to create a show for children, kind of like along the lines of, kind of the format of Blues Clues, but more kind of Mr. Rogersy.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers Shrinky Dinks, but Shrinky Dinks were like these little pieces of plastic you could, plastic sheets you could draw on. You throw them in the oven, and they shrink to about a third of their size. So I have a bunch of characters, and it's basically about a giraffe named Tom who goes on adventures. He has various modes of transportation, and he goes and meets up with friends, and each one of them has a little moral to teach them. The episodes are only going to be about a minute and a half long, but yeah, it's just something that I'm working on right now, and it's been fun, a fun way to occupy my time. And I'm writing new music. I got a few new songs written, and I'm in the process of getting in the studio and recording them so that I can release them, and maybe even try to shoot a couple little social distance music videos
Yeah,
and
very
get
cool.
those out there. Yeah.
Right
So
on.
that's me at the moment.
Well, when you officially launch the children's show and the small episodes, let me know
Okay.
so I can update the description in this episode
Great.
so someone can click through to it and go watch it wherever it is.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All
I
right.
love that.
Well, let's move on to one of my favorite sections now, and I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
My parents always gave me the choice, but it's something that I always wanted to do. And since doing it from a young age, that's how it's been. But as I get older, it's always been it always is the sheer uncertainty of the life that I've chosen, that we choose as entertainers, can be so scary. And the one thing that makes me consider, I really want to do this anymore. Sometimes it can be annoyingly stressful, the lack of control that we have over our careers, but it's never really enough to deter me. So I kind of try to push that energy out and let it go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
When I was young, my father used to say to me, what you're responsible for when you work, whether it's a play or a TV show or a movie or anything, you show up, know your lines, know your intention in a scene, plant your feet, say your words with truth, hang up your costume, and above all, from the extras to the executive producers and creators, be nice, be respectful, and be kind to everybody that you meet.
Absolutely. It is so underappreciated by so many people how much being nice will go.
It's just you just meet exactly, yeah, and you meet people that aren't that way, and I've sometimes had to pull people aside and go, look, man, like we get to play pretend and dress up for a living. Don't take yourself so seriously. Be nice. Just be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
I honestly, it would be just kind of generally staying creative, keeping my mind active, just letting my thoughts run. Because usually when I do that, that's how either songs happen or new ideas for a short or a little project or something come in. Something that's working for me really well right now. I'm taking an amazing audition class on Zoom, and it's taught by a guy named Gregory Sims. If you guys want to look him up, he is taking students, and he's an incredible teacher, and has a really really amazing technique that he's implemented that I've never really studied before, and it's been helping me wrap my head around the way that I audition and the energy that I bring into the room when I go in and read. So I would highly recommend it.
Brilliant. Fantastic resource. And I
Yeah,
love that you mentioned, hey, I'm working on staying creative. And I think so often us as professionals in this industry forget that we are in control of
hundred
our
percent.
art and our creativity. It's easy to get caught up in the fact that I only do art if someone's paying me or if I've got a gig or I sign that contract. You
Yeah,
can still find that fulfillment within yourself. And
a
in a
hundred
time
percent.
like this, it's super important.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I'm learning now too is so much of the time we put all of this weight on the auditions. Oh my God, I got to book this job. And, you stress out about that, which automatically makes people just not want to hire you because you can, people can smell the desperation when you walk into the room.
Yeah.
You put all that pressure on yourself, and it's not healthy. It's stressing you out. You're gonna start going gray way too early. But we put all this weight on the decisions of other people, and frankly, we've allowed that. That's our. I'm always big on taking responsibility for my part in something. And my part in that is that I've allowed that. I've allowed that to be the case, which doesn't necessarily have to be that. So, that being said, there's something to be said for creating your own content, and just sidestepping the red tape sometimes. And you're gonna hit walls, you're gonna hit speed bumps, but this town is filled with people that are just looking for the next the next thing, and they're open to reading scripts, and they're open to talking about producing something, and they might actually have the funds to make that happen. It's like, if you have a group of friends that you guys can talk about these things, like, pool your resources and then put something out there. I mean, that's how so many of the teams that we now watch at the Oscars were created, by just them going like, well, what, I'm just going to make a movie. That's what I'm going to do. And I don't know how it's going to happen. It might take me a couple of years, but I'm going to do it anyway. So yeah, just create your own stuff.
Love it.
Yeah.
And the fourth question, what is the best resource, whether that's a book, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, maybe a piece of technology that you've found is helping your career right now?
Sure. Well, as I said, in terms of class, I think class is always a good resource. I throughout my life, my parents always kind of thought that, especially as a youngster, if you go to an acting class, while your brain is still developing, you're going to learn somebody else's technique, and if you have any kind of natural ability at all in it, it might kind of mess up your process that you're just starting to create. So they never really put me in classes as a kid, but as you get older, you gotta sharpen your tool set. So, like I said, Gregory Sims' acting class is amazing, and another fellow y'all should look up is a dear friend of mine, an incredible teacher. I've sent him a lot of students. His name is Brad Greenquist, and if you've ever seen the original Pet Cemetery, he's the guy that gets hit by the car that keeps showing up and kind of going, don't go in that cemetery, and he works all the time, professional actor, really incredible person. So yeah, those two. And in terms of piece of technology, honestly, the I just picked up the iPhone 11 Pro, and shooting on that is amazing, especially with auditions. It's got various light features that kind of pick things up and mold to whatever kind of light you have, so you don't have to go out of your way to really light things super super well, because it'll adjust for you, and it's just a good little resource to have, and a mini tripod. That's it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Love it. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you
Mm.
keep it the same?
I think I make some different choices. When you're a teenager, you're kind of just you're living your own life, you're kind of doing your own thing, and there's a lot of adults around you that are going like, "Yo, pay attention to this thing, because later on down the road, this might shift in a different way." And what you realize is, sometimes you listen to people, and then sometimes you just go, yeah, yeah, whatever, like, I got this,
Yeah.
and I've definitely made some choices, some mistakes that have shifted my career in certain ways that I would absolutely change. I would just I'd make some smarter choices. I would also just say yes to more. You get a chance every moment of every day to turn things around in whatever direction you want to, and make things better for yourself. So now that I have this knowledge, that, like, I just want to say yes to things, because growing up, like, I there was a period of time where I got picky about the things that I was going in for, because, like, if I read some of a script, or read a script and I didn't vibe with it, or I didn't like it, I just go, I think I'm gonna pass
Yeah.
on this, even going in for it. And I think that's fine when you get your career to a certain point. And I definitely have been in positions where, like, I did a couple projects that pushed me up to a little bit of a higher rung than what I was. And I don't want to say you get cocky, but you kind of do. You're like, well, I got this, without being arrogant about it. You're like, I think I can afford to say no to this. When I mean, let's be honest. Like, I don't know about you. I just want to play. I just want to go play
Yeah.
and do what I love to do, which is this. And so, now I is like, when I got into my 30s, I was like, I'm gonna just start looking at things a little differently. When I get a project script, if it's like a small indie, small budget, maybe the dialogue isn't all there, whatever it is, I'm gonna look at it and go, instead of reading 50 pages or 100 pages of it and being like, no, I don't like this, I'm gonna pass. I look at it and I go, all right, maybe like my heart's not totally in this yet, but if I did book this, what would I do to elevate this project? Like, how could I make this better,
Yeah.
and how can I be of service to this project? What skill set do I have, that what choices would I make as this character that might elevate it and make it a little bit better? And also, I've had meetings with directors and stuff who also maybe wrote a project, and we talk about it. And there were a couple things that I right before everything shut down, that I read and then I met on, and I was it something that maybe didn't make a lot, like a project that didn't make a lot of sense, like it was kind of running itself in circles or whatever. And I'd sit down and like, so are you? And before I got the words out of my mouth, the writer director would just be like, oh no, I'm aware of where this script is at, and all I want is to collaborate. I want, if you have an idea that's going to push things in a different direction, or I do, like, let's talk about it and let's work through it, because I think we can make it awesome together, and that's the fun of it, because I mean,
Yeah.
how many things do you work on where you might have a script that is solid, they're not even, maybe they haven't done a rewrite on it in a minute, and you're on set that one day, and everybody, both of you guys go, God, something isn't working, how can we change this to make it better? And I just love when people aren't married to their material, and they're
Hmm.
just like, no, I don't care, let's go play, let's
Let's
play
play.
together, because that's
Yeah.
really all I want. Yeah, for sure.
Love it. I love it. Incredible advice. And the last question: what is the golden nugget knowledge drop that you've learned from your successful career in this industry that you like to leave
Mm.
with our listeners?
I would say that, yeah, people aren't looking for you to act a role anymore. Like, they're not going to cast Will Rothhaar as Charlie Chaplin. They're going to find a person that is that quirk and that kind of person. But when they're reading you, you audition for things, they want to see you. And we all have little tidbits and pieces of all of these characters that we go in for. In all of us, you have something everywhere of different characters, and so just be yourself, and remember that if you aren't having fun, something's not working. Because, as I've said earlier, we get paid to play pretend and dress up. So don't take yourself so seriously, and just have a good time, and hustle hard for yourself, and be kind to everybody. That's it.
Beautiful. I love all of that. And to wrap up this interview, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, my Instagram is kind of fun, and I'm post all kinds of different things. You can follow me on Instagram at the real Willie Lamar, and you can listen to my album That Good Love if you type in Willie Lamar on iTunes or Amazon or Spotify, any of the platforms up there. You can also check me out at willielamar.com. That has the album streaming up there, and a little bit of the history of how it came around, and a little bit more about me. So yeah, and also just listen for new music that'll be coming soon, and new information about a giraffe named Tom to entertain your kids during quarantine, because I think they'll probably like it. And also DM me on Instagram if you'd like a Zoom coaching session, or maybe when things calm down a bit, if you need an energy healing session. So, and thank you all for listening. I appreciate you.
Beautiful. And for everyone listening, all the links to everything he just mentioned will be in the description of this episode. Will, thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been such a pleasure, Dane. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.